The door clicked shut behind him. That sound. That one quiet, deliberate sound, and Khyven Deshawn Mercer felt every hair on the back of his neck rise. He stopped moving. He didn't breathe. His fingers tightened around the delivery folder in his hand, thick manila, worn at the corner where he always gripped it too hard. He could feel the slight drag of carpet beneath his shoes. Thick. Expensive. Not the kind of floor found on the lower levels of this building. He counted back in his head. Elevator. 30-second ride. Top floor. Left turn, not right. He had gone left. He was supposed to go right. The air in this room was different. Controlled. Climate managed down to degrees most people never noticed. There was cedar in it, rich and dark. Something else underneath. Something that had no name but made the back of his throat tighten. Power had a smell. Khyven had learned that the hard way. He cleared his throat. Kept his voice even. I'm looking for the administrative office on 42. I have a delivery for. You're not on 42. One voice. Calm. Not loud. The kind of calm that didn't need volume to carry weight. Khyven turned slightly toward the sound. His cane was folded in his jacket pocket. He rarely used it in buildings he'd memorized. But he hadn't memorized this one. He was new here. 3 days on this contract. Temp work. Night shifts only. I apologize, Khyven said carefully. I'll leave. He turned back toward the door. The handle won't work from your side. A second voice. Different from the first. Quieter. More deliberate. Like each word had been measured before it left his mouth. Khyven's hand found the door handle anyway. Pressed it. Nothing. He pressed again. Locked. His pulse spiked, just once, just sharp, and then he pulled it back down the way he always did. Panic was a luxury. He had stopped affording it years ago. He turned back to face the room. 3 people. He was certain of that now. He could hear breathing from 3 distinct positions. One near the far window, he could feel the faint shift of air from that direction. One to his left, closer than he first thought. One directly ahead, maybe 12 feet, unmoving. None of them were moving toward him. But none of them were moving away. My name is Khyven Mercer, he said, keeping his voice flat and professional. I work for Holloway Temp Services. I have a document delivery scheduled for tonight and I took the wrong floor. That's all this is. Silence. Not empty silence. The kind that held things in it. Holloway, the first voice repeated. Yes. Who hired you? Khyven frowned. The company coordinator assigned me the job. I don't have direct contact with the client. The one to his left shifted slightly. Just a small movement. But Khyven tracked it. He doesn't know, that voice said. The third one, the one directly ahead, hadn't spoken yet. When he did, it was low. Almost careful. What can you see? The question landed differently than Khyven expected. Not cruel. Not mocking. There was something in it that felt almost like restraint. Nothing, Khyven answered. I've been blind since I was 19. Another silence. This one felt heavier. The one at the window moved, and Khyven tracked the sound of footsteps crossing the room slowly. Not toward him. Around him. Like someone walking the circumference of something they were trying to understand. You came up alone, the first voice said. Yes. No escort. No. No one told you this floor was restricted. Khyven paused. No one told me anything except the floor number and the office name. And I misread the. He stopped. Adjusted. I miscounted the turns. The footstep stopped. The one from the window was now somewhere behind him. Khyven didn't turn. He kept his body still and his breathing even. His unmarked, the one behind him said quietly. The word unmarked dropped into the room like a stone into still water. Khyven said nothing. Completely, the second voice added. The third, the still one, the one directly ahead, exhaled once. That's not possible in this district, he said. Not at his age. They weren't talking to him now. They were talking around him. About him. And Khyven had been in enough rooms to know when he had become the subject of a conversation he wasn't meant to understand. I don't want any trouble, he said. I'll wait by the door. You can have someone come unlock it and I'll leave. I won't say anything about being up here. The one ahead of him spoke again. What's your scent profile? Khyven blinked. Excuse me. Your registered scent profile. Every unmarked Omega in this district has one on file. What's yours? The room had shifted. He could feel it. I don't have one, Khyven said. Stillness. Complete, unnatural stillness from all three of them at once. You don't have one, the first voice repeated. No. Why not? Khyven's jaw tightened. Because I'm not registered. The air in the room changed again. He couldn't explain it better than that. Something had shifted, like pressure dropping before a storm. All three of them had gone quiet in a way that felt synchronized. Like they were communicating without words. Then the one behind him stepped closer. Not touching. But close enough that Khyven could feel the warmth of someone much larger than himself standing just behind his left shoulder. His scent, the one behind him said, very quietly. Not to Khyven. To the others. I know, the first one said. That's not possible, the second said. We would have found him. A pause. Then the third, the still one, spoke. And when he did, his voice had dropped to something barely above a murmur. Why does he smell like someone we lost? Hi viewers, if you woke up one morning and found out your whole identity had been hidden from the people who were looking for you, would you want to know the truth, or would you rather stay invisible? Drop your answer in the comments right now, I'm reading every single one. Khyven didn't move. He didn't know what that question meant. But whatever it meant to them, it meant everything. Because none of the three men spoke again after that. And then, from somewhere below, muffled through the building's walls, came a sound that Khyven recognized immediately. A gunshot. Then another. Then the low, mechanical groan of a building locking itself down. Every door. Every exit. Every elevator. All of them, shutting at once. One of the triplets moved to the window fast. They're already inside, he said. The second was already on a comm device. His voice had dropped to clipped, precise commands Khyven couldn't fully follow. The third, the still one, crossed the room in 4 steps. And stopped directly in front of Khyven. Don't move, he said. Don't make a sound. And whatever happens next, stay close. Khyven's mouth went dry. What's happening? A pause. 1 beat too long. They found you. Khyven didn't ask who they were. Not yet. There was no time for that question, and some part of him, the part that had spent years learning to read rooms without seeing them, understood that the answer would cost more than he was ready to pay right now. The one who had told him to stay close hadn't moved away. He was still there. right in front of Khyven. Close enough that Khyven could feel the slow, controlled rhythm of his breathing. This man was not afraid. That was the thing that struck Khyven first and hardest. Because fear had a sound, even when people tried to hide it. The breath went shallow. The heartbeat sped up. The movements got faster and slightly less precise. This man's breathing was slower than before. Like danger made him more settled, not less. Khyven had never met anyone like that in his life. "My name is Zaire," the man said. Flat. No ceremony. "That's Damon." A pause, and Khyven tracked another voice to his left, the one who had been near the window. "And the one on comms is Callum." Khyven said nothing for a moment. Then, "Are those names supposed to mean something to me?" "No," Zaire said. "Not yet." "Not yet," Khyven repeated. "That's what I said." Damon moved from the window. Khyven heard his footsteps, measured, unhurried, deliberate. He stopped somewhere to Khyven's right. "The breach is on sublevel 2, Damon said. "They came through maintenance." Callum finished something on the comm device. 12 units. Maybe more. "They're not ours." "Then whose?" Damon asked. A pause. Then Callum's voice, quieter now, careful. "Registry enforcement." The temperature in the room didn't change. But something did. Khyven felt it in the way all three of them went completely still at the same time. That synchronized silence again, the one that made him feel like he was standing in the middle of something ancient and enormous, something that operated according to rules he had never been taught. "They don't run ops like this for standard violations," Zaire said. "No," Callum agreed. "Which means they're not here for a standard case." Another pause. "No." Zaire turned slightly. Khyven tracked the movement by sound, fabric shifting, weight redistributing. "How long have you been in this district?" Zaire asked him. 3 months, Khyven said. "Where before that?" "East Corridor. Sector 9. "Before that?" Khyven's jaw tightened. "Does that matter right now?" "It matters more than anything else in this room right now," Damon said from his right. Khyven exhaled. "I move around. I've always moved around. It's easier when you're unregistered." "Someone helped you stay unregistered," Callum said. His voice was the most controlled of the three, every word precisely placed, like he was reading from a document only he could see. "That's not something that happens by accident. Not in a city this organized." Khyven said nothing. Because Callum wasn't wrong. There had been someone. A woman. An old contact who handled paperwork and spoke in half sentences and never explained anything fully. She had kept him off the books for years. He had never questioned it too hard. He had been too grateful. "I had help," Khyven admitted. "A long time ago." "What was her name?" Zaire asked. Khyven went still. "I never told you it was a woman." Silence. Then Damon, quietly, "No. You didn't." The implication settled over Khyven like cold water. They knew something. They had known something before he walked through that door. Or maybe, and this was the thought that made his chest go tight, they had been looking for him specifically and he had walked directly into the room where they were waiting. "You've been looking for me," Khyven said. Not a question. Zaire didn't deny it. "We've been aware of a signal. A pull. For about 7 months now." "A pull. That's the best word for it. What does that mean?" Damon spoke this time. "It means every alpha in this building has been running slightly elevated stress markers for 7 months and none of us could explain why. It means our instincts have been pointing in a direction that didn't have a name. It means he stopped. Recalibrated. It means you were close enough that we felt you. But every time we tried to locate the source, it was gone. Khyven turned that over. You were searching for something you couldn't find. Yes. And then I walked in. Yes. He breathed in slowly through his nose. The cedar in the air was theirs. He understood that now. 3 separate threads of it. Slightly different from each other. Zaya's was the darkest, like wood left in rain. Damon's was sharper, cleaner. Callum's had something almost cool underneath it. He had noticed those smells from the second he walked in. He hadn't known what to do with them then. He still didn't know now. You said I smell like someone you lost, Khyven said. Nobody answered immediately. Zaya moved 2 steps, then stopped. Close enough now that Khyven could feel the warmth of him again. We had a 4th, Zaya said finally. His voice didn't change. He was careful about that. But there was something underneath the flatness, something worn and old, like a bruise that had healed but left a different kind of ache. Someone we were supposed to bond with. Before the bond completed, they disappeared. Khyven didn't move. When? 8 years ago. 8 years, Khyven repeated. We looked, Damon said from his right. For 3 years we looked. Then we were told it was over. That the trace was cold. That whoever it was, he stopped again. This time the silence felt intentional, like he was choosing not to finish the sentence. Callum finished it for him, from somewhere across the room. Had either died or been successfully hidden. The word hidden landed differently than anything else they had said. Not lost. Hidden. Khyven's fingers curled around the folder in his hands. It was a reflexive motion, something his body did when his mind was moving faster than he wanted it to. You think I'm that person, he said. Zaya didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was even lower than before. I think. He stopped. His hand rose, Khyven felt the displaced air, and moved toward Khyven's neck. Then stopped. Pulled back. Like he had caught himself doing something he hadn't planned. The air between them held the shape of that unfinished motion. I think, Zaya said again, quieter now, that I need more information before I say anything I can't take back. Khyven swallowed. And then, cutting through everything, cutting through all of it, Callum's comm device erupted. One word from someone on the other end. Static broken. Urgent. Target confirmed. Omega located. Zaya's entire body shifted. Damon moved immediately, crossing to Callum's position. Khyven stood perfectly still in the middle of the room. They're not here for you, are they? He said. It wasn't a question. No one answered. Which was answer enough. They moved before Khyven could say another word. Zaya's hand closed around his arm, not the folder, not his shoulder, his arm, and the grip was firm without being rough. It communicated one thing clearly, keep up or be carried. Khyven kept up. He had learned a long time ago how to navigate spaces he couldn't see. He listened. He counted steps. He tracked the echo of sound off walls to understand the shape of a room. But this was different from anything he had practiced. This was moving fast through a building he didn't know, guided by a man he had met 11 minutes ago, while the sounds of a hostile incursion climbed steadily through the floors below. He counted. 7 steps to the left wall. Callum's footsteps ahead, quick, controlled. A door opened, the seal of pressurized air releasing. Damon behind them, pulling the door shut. A corridor. Narrower than the office. The air here was recycled differently, less cedar, more metal and dry concrete. There's a maintenance passage, Callum said ahead of them. It runs parallel to the north elevator shaft. Takes us down to level 31. From there we use the secondary stairwell. Will it be clear? Damon asked. Not guaranteed. Then we move fast. Zaya adjusted his grip on Khyven's arm. Shifted from his upper arm to his wrist, the adjustment almost unconscious, like instinct was making small corrections faster than thought could. Tell me if you're losing your footing, Zaya said. I won't lose my footing, Khyven said. A brief silence. Tell me anyway. They moved. The corridor turned twice, Khyven tracked both turns. Left, then right. The floor changed from carpet to bare concrete. The sound of their footsteps sharpened and bounced back faster, which meant the ceiling was lower here. Maintenance level. Utilitarian. No climate control. Below them, the building was not quiet. He could hear it in the structure itself. Vibrations through the concrete. The dull percussion of something heavy hitting a door somewhere below. A shout, too distant to make out words, but the tone was clear. Organized. Military. These weren't thieves. These were chaotic. They moved loud and fast and wrong. Whatever was below them moved with the kind of discipline that only came from training. How many? Zaya asked into the air, not to Khyven. Callum answered from ahead. 14 confirmed on sublevel 2. 3 more on 28. Climbing. Armed? Yes. Containment gear. A pause from Callum. That pause was its own answer. Full kit, he said finally. Damon muttered something under his breath that Khyven didn't catch. What's containment gear? Khyven asked. Nobody answered immediately. Zaire. He said the name deliberately, not loudly. Just clearly. Zaire's grip tightened once, a brief, involuntary response, before he answered. It's equipment used for extracting unregistered omegas. Scent suppressors. Binding cuffs. Neural inhibitors. A beat. The kind of operation that doesn't get run unless someone very high up authorized it. Authorized it for who? For you, Damon said from behind. No softening on that. Just the word, direct and flat. This is an extraction order. Not an arrest. They're not here to question you. Khyven processed that. An extraction order meant he wasn't a person in this operation. He was a package. He thought of the word Callum had said on the comm target confirmed. Omega located. Not his name. Not his face. Not even a description. Just a category. A thing to be retrieved. He had spent 11 years building a life in the margins of this city. Careful. Quiet. Small enough to disappear into. And somewhere, in an office he would never see, by people he would never meet, someone had been watching that quiet little life and waiting for the right moment to end it. Keep moving, Zaya said. The passage angled downward. A ramp, slight grade, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. Khyven adjusted his weight forward. There's a junction ahead, Callum said. 30 seconds. What's at the junction? Damon asked. Cross passage. If they've got anyone on the maintenance grid, this is where they'd post them. Do they? Another pause. Motion sensor is reading something. The group stopped. Khyven held his breath. The building breathed around them. He could hear the HVAC system cycling through its exhaust vents overhead. A pipe somewhere to the right carried water, he could hear the low rush of it. And in the junction ahead, 30, maybe 40 feet. The specific quality of stillness that meant someone was being very careful not to make noise. Zarya leaned down slightly. Khyven felt the warmth of him very close to his ear. "How good is your hearing?" he asked. "Barely above a breath." "Better than yours," Khyven said. "Same volume." A pause. Then, almost imperceptibly, "How many?" Khyven focused. He sorted through the sounds, the building, the pipes, the hvac, the three men breathing around him, and found the shape of what didn't belong. One person. Positioned against the right wall of the junction. Breathing too deliberately. The way people breathed when they were trying not to be heard, which ironically made them easier to find. "One," Khyven murmured. "Right wall. Standing still." Zarya pulled back. Some kind of silent exchange passed between the three of them. Khyven couldn't see it, but he felt it in the way the air redistributed, the way footsteps adjusted without a word being spoken. Then Damon moved ahead. Fast. The sounds that followed lasted less than 4 seconds. A sharp impact. A grunt. The weight of a body being caught before it could hit the floor. Then silence again. Damon's voice, low and calm, clear. They moved through the junction. As they passed, Khyven felt the presence of the downed figure, a body on the floor, still breathing, just unconscious. One of the enforcement team. Wearing gear, by the feel of the air around them, thick fabric, body armor, equipment. Callum crouched briefly. A sound of something being removed, a device of some kind. "Comms unit," Callum said quietly. "Now I can hear what they're saying." They kept moving. The stairwell door was another 40 steps. Khyven counted every one. They took the stairs down, 18 steps per flight, 2 flights, they emerged on a floor that smelled different from the maintenance passage. Less metal. More composite flooring. Office level. Callum pressed the comm unit to his ear. His footsteps slowed for 3 seconds. Then he said, "They know we're moving." "Damon, how?" "They have eyes on the stairwell cameras. They were watching when we came through." "Can you kill the feed?" "Not from here." A beat of silence. "They're redirecting," Callum said. "Moving teams to level 28. They want to box us in before we reach the lower exits." Zarya spoke. Khyven had already come to notice that Zarya didn't speak unless what he said changed something. He had that quality, an economy of words that made every one of them land harder. "There's another exit," Zarya said. "Sub-basement. Emergency vehicle bay." "The elevator doesn't run that deep without building authority clearance," Callum said. "I have it." A pause. "Since when?" Damon asked. "Since we bought the building," Zarya said. Damon was quiet for a moment. Then, dryly, "You could have led with that." They changed direction. Back toward an elevator, a service unit, heavier doors, industrial mechanism. Khyven heard the key card beep before the doors slid open. They stepped inside. Zarya kept his hand at Khyven's wrist. Loose now, not gripping, just present. The doors closed. The elevator began to move. Callum exhaled. Damon leaned against the wall. Khyven heard the shift of his weight. 3 seconds of quiet. Khyven tilted his head back slightly and said, "This isn't over." "No," Zarya agreed. "They're going to figure out where we're going." "Probably." "So what happens when they do?" The elevator hummed around them. Zarya's answer came slowly. "Measured. Then we deal with it." Khyven nodded once. He had more questions than that. He had more questions than he could count. But there was a time for questions and a time for being very still and very quiet and letting the next few minutes resolve before asking anything else. This was that time. The elevator descended. 1 floor. 2. 3. Then stopped. Between floors. No alarm. No error sound. No mechanical issue. It just stopped. Khyven felt the exact moment all three of them registered it, the change in their breathing, the shift in body weight. That wasn't us, Callum said. No, Damon agreed. The lights cut out. Full darkness. Not that it changed anything for Khyven. But he heard it in the others, the sharp intake of breath, the immediate physical adjustment as their other senses rushed to compensate for the loss of sight. And then, from below them, through the floor of the elevator car, came a sound. Movement. Someone was already in the shaft beneath them. Waiting. Nobody panicked. That was the thing Khyven would remember later. Not the dark, not the stopped elevator, not the sounds rising from the shaft below. What he would remember was the absence of panic in those three men. No sharp commands. No scrambling. Just a fast, deliberate shift in how they positioned themselves. Zaire moved Khyven back toward the rear wall of the elevator car. Not roughly. Just firmly. His body a wall between Khyven and the floor panel that was beginning, very slowly, to be worked loose from beneath. Damon had already dropped to one knee on the floor. Callum was on the comm unit. Level 26, Shaft B, Callum said quietly. We have a breach from below. Tell me you have someone. A response too garbled for Khyven to catch. Callum's jaw tightened. He heard that in the pause before Callum spoke again. How long? Another response. Understood. He lowered the device. Our people are 6 minutes out, he said. And the ones in the shaft? Damon asked. 60 seconds. Maybe less. Khyven stood against the rear wall and tracked the sounds. 2 people below, he was almost certain. Moving methodically. They had tools for this. This wasn't improvised. This had been planned, which meant someone had known they would try this elevator, in this shaft, at approximately this time. Which meant someone inside this building had fed that information out. He filed that thought away. Is there a roof panel? Khyven asked. A brief pause. Yes, Zaire said. Then go up, not down. The shaft above us may be compromised too, Damon said. Maybe, Khyven said. The one below definitely is. Another pause. Shorter this time. His right, Callum said. Damon was already standing. Zaire. Zaire said nothing. He was already moving. Khyven heard the sound of him shifting his weight, assessing the ceiling of the elevator car. A service hatch. The standard maintenance access every elevator had. He heard Zaire's hands find the latch. I need to lift you first, Zaire said to Khyven. Khyven didn't argue. Tell me when. Now. 2 hands at his waist, steady and certain, and Khyven was lifted cleanly through the open hatch. He got his arms over the edge first, then swung his legs up. The top of the elevator car was metal. Slightly dusty. The shaft above was open. He could feel the vertical column of air and hear the soft ping of cables under tension far above. Damon came through next, then Callum pulled himself up last. Below them, the floor panel of the elevator gave. Khyven heard it clearly. A scrape, then a thud as it was pushed free. Voices below. 2 of them, confirming the car was empty. Move, Zaire said, very quietly. The shaft had ladder rungs bolted to the wall, maintenance access. Zaya guided Khyven's hand to the first one. Cold metal. Steady. They climbed. 1 rung. 2. 5. 10. Khyven didn't count out loud. He counted inside, the way he did everything. A private internal rhythm that kept his body oriented when nothing else could. Below them, he heard the 2 agents from the shaft beginning to climb into the elevator car. Searching. They hadn't looked up yet. Faster, Damon murmured from below him. Khyven climbed faster. At what he estimated was 1 full floor up, Zaya found a service door built into the shaft wall, a narrow thing, the kind that maintenance workers used between scheduled elevator inspections. He got it open. They moved through into a utility corridor. Concrete floor. Low ceiling. The specific smell of a building's infrastructure, conduit, wiring, the mineral tang of old concrete that hadn't been renovated in years. The door closed behind them. For a moment, all 4 of them just breathed. Then Damon said, "We need to talk." Khyven almost laughed. "We need to get out of the building first." "No," Zaya said. And his voice had changed slightly. It had been measured and controlled all night, but now there was something underneath it that had shifted. Not anger. Something older than anger. He's right. We need to talk. Right now. While we still have a moment. Khyven turned toward his voice. "Then talk," he said. "You asked us earlier why we're protecting you," Zaya said. "You didn't use those words, but that's what you were asking." "Yes." "The answer is not simple." "I have time." Zaya was quiet for 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, Khyven heard Callum and Damon shift their positions, slightly apart, slightly back. Giving Zaya room. That was telling. These 3 men had a hierarchy, even among each other, and that hierarchy pointed to Zaya when the weight of a conversation became too much for anyone else to carry. 7 months ago, Zaya began, we started sensing something. Not hearing it. Not seeing it. Sensing it, the way alphas sense their designated pair. It's a biological signal. Most people bond before their mid-20s. We didn't. Why not? Khyven asked. Because the person we were connected to disappeared, Damon said. Before the bond could complete. You told me that earlier. Yes, Zaya said. But I didn't tell you the rest. He paused. We were told, years ago, that the disappearance was random. A system failure. A bureaucratic error that caused our designated Omega to be incorrectly transferred to another district and lost in the process. He stopped. We believed that for a long time. But you don't now, Khyven said. No, Callum said, from slightly farther back. Because 3 months ago, we intercepted a registry communication that referenced a project. A containment project. Started about 23 years ago. 23 years ago. Khyven was 23 years old. He didn't say that. He waited. The project's name was Null Protocol, Callum continued. The goal was simple, in theory. Create Omegas whose scent signatures were chemically suppressed at birth. Undetectable by alphas. Untraceable by the standard registry network. Why? Khyven asked. Because an Omega that no alpha can sense is an Omega that no alpha can claim, Damon said. And an unclaimed Omega stays in the system. Stays workable. Stays useful to whatever the registry wants to use them for, indefinitely, because no bond ever forms to remove them from circulation. The corridor was very quiet. Khyven stood in the middle of it and felt the shape of what they were telling him rearranging itself in his mind. 23 years. Unregistered. Always moving. Always a little harder to find than he should have been. The woman who had helped him, who had kept his paperwork clean, who had moved him between districts whenever anything got too close, who had died 4 years ago and whose death had felt, at the time, like losing the only anchor he had. He had thought she was kind. She had been managing him. His processing, Damon said quietly, to the others. Give him a moment, Zaire said. We don't have a moment, Callum said. They're going to find us in this corridor. Give him a moment, Zaire repeated. Nobody argued. Khyven breathed in slowly. The air here smelled like concrete and dust, and 3 men who were being careful with him in a way that should have felt condescending but didn't, because it didn't come from pity. It came from something else entirely. The blindness, Khyven said. A beat of silence. Yes, Zaire said. It wasn't natural. No. Khyven tilted his head down slightly. He had been told, at 19, that the vision loss was a genetic condition, late onset, progressive, inevitable. Doctors had said it with the practiced neutrality of people delivering a diagnosis they had delivered many times. He had grieved it for 2 years and then rebuilt his life around it. And now? It was part of the project, Callum said. We think. We don't have full confirmation. But the data we pulled referenced sensory modification as a method of increasing profile suppression. They made me blind, Khyven said. We don't know the full scope yet. They made me blind, he said again. Not louder. Just clearer. No one corrected him. Zaire moved. Closer. Not touching. Just present, the same way he had been present all night, always close enough that Khyven could feel the warmth of him. You weren't lost, Zaire said. His voice was low. Certain. You were kept. The word kept sat in Khyven's chest like something cold and heavy. Not lost. Kept. Somewhere below them, in the building's infrastructure, boots hit concrete. Callum said, they found the service corridor grid. We have maybe 2 minutes. Zaire didn't move immediately. He waited, just a few more seconds, until Khyven raised his head again. Tell me the way out, Khyven said. And Zaire did. The passage was 30 feet long. Callum counted it off under his breath as they moved, an old navigational habit that Khyven recognized in him because he did the same thing. 30 feet of raw concrete, low ceiling, a maintenance grid that smelled like rust and recycled air. At the far end was a door that Callum unlocked with a physical key, not a card, not a digital panel, an actual key on a ring he kept inside his jacket. That told Khyven something. These men had prepared for a situation where digital access would be cut. They had prepared for tonight. Or something like tonight. The door opened into a service bay. Ground level. The air changed immediately, damp concrete, the smell of vehicle exhaust, the cold. Real cold, the kind that came from outside rather than climate systems. They were near an exterior wall. Loading bay, Damon said. East side. Vehicle. Should be. Unless they got to it. Callum moved ahead. Khyven heard him moving between what sounded like parked vehicles. The slight echo of footsteps changing as he passed between large metal objects. It's here, Callum said. Untouched. Damon exhaled once. Then we have maybe 3 minutes before they figure out we exited ground level on this side. 2, Zaire said. They're faster than we're giving them credit for tonight. They moved toward the vehicle. Zaire's hand found Khyven's elbow, a light touch now, different from the firm grip of the upper floors. More like direction than control. Khyven stopped moving. Zaire stopped too. The others were already at the vehicle, Khyven could hear Callum working on something near the driver's side, Damon loading equipment. "What?" Zaya asked. Khyven didn't answer immediately. The problem wasn't the vehicle. The problem wasn't the immediate danger, which was real and close. The problem was the thing happening in Khyven's chest. A slow, unfamiliar heaviness that had been building since the moment he processed what they had told him in that utility corridor. Not lost. Kept. 23 years of a life that had been designed for someone else's purpose. The blindness. The moving. The woman who had managed him like a project with legs. All of it, layered and deliberate and pointed in one direction that he had never been allowed to see. And now 3 men who spoke to each other in silences and moved like they shared a nervous system, were putting him in a car and calling it safety. "I need you to understand something," Khyven said. Zaya waited. "I don't know you," Khyven said. "Any of you. I know your names and I know you're dangerous and I know that tonight you have protected me. That matters. I'm not ignoring that." He paused. "But I also know that the last person who protected me was doing it for reasons that had nothing to do with me. And I lived inside that protection for years without understanding what it was." Zaya was very still. "So before I get in that vehicle," Khyven said, "I need to know, from you, directly, what happens on the other side of this." A moment. "What do you mean?" Zaya said. "I mean, if I go with you. If I let you take me somewhere safe. What are you expecting?" Khyven's voice was flat and steady. "I've heard what you think I am to you. I've heard the word bond. I've heard what the pull means. I'm not stupid. I understand what you're expecting." He tilted his head slightly. "I'm asking if you understand what I'm saying." Zaya said nothing. "Then, tell me what you're saying." "I'm saying I'm not doing this on anyone else's terms. Not the registry's. Not yours." He let that land. "I will go with you because I have no other viable option right now and because the alternative is being taken by people who don't think of me as a person. But that's the extent of what I'm agreeing to tonight." Silence. "No claiming," Khyven said. "No bond. Not yet." The word yet hung in the air. It was the smallest possible opening, barely a crack. But it was something and they both knew it. Zaya breathed in slowly. "Okay," he said. "Just that. No argument. No negotiation. No countercondition. Okay." Khyven exhaled. "Okay." They walked to the vehicle. Damon and Callum were already inside. Callum in front, Damon in the back. Zaya opened the rear door and waited while Khyven found the frame and got himself seated. The door closed. The vehicle started, quiet engine, something expensive and well-maintained. They moved. The loading bay door opened ahead of them, automated, responding to something Callum triggered from inside. Cold air rushed in briefly, and then they were out, moving through the building's lower exit route, into the street. Nobody spoke for almost 2 full minutes. Khyven sat in the back seat with his hands in his lap and his breathing even, and he counted, out of habit, the turns they made. Left. Straight for 12 seconds. Right. Another right. They were heading north. "There's a property in the north corridor," Damon said, somewhere in that silence. "Off-grid. Not registered to any of us directly. It's clean." "How long have you had it?" Khyven asked. 3 years. Khyven said nothing. 3 years was before the 7 months of sensing him. Before the signal started. Which meant they had been preparing for contingencies long before they knew what those contingencies looked like. He filed that away too. Callum, from the front seat, there's a problem. Damon, what? I've been monitoring their comms since we took the unit from the man in the junction. A pause. They're not standing down. Expected, Zaya said. They've escalated, Callum said. The authorization has moved up. They're not treating this as a failed extraction anymore. Then what are they treating it as? A pause from Callum. Short but heavy. An active breach. They're saying we interfered with a sanctioned registry operation. That we obstructed an enforcement order. He stopped. They're filing it as an act of aggression against the registry. The vehicle was very quiet. That means they're not just coming after him anymore, Damon said. No, Callum agreed. They're coming after all of us. Khyven absorbed that. He had walked through the wrong door tonight. That was where all of this started, a wrong turn, a miscounted hallway, a door that closed behind him. And now, in the space of 2 hours, he had become the center of something that was expanding outward in every direction, pulling 3 powerful men into a confrontation with a system large enough to own entire districts. He had done that. By existing. By walking through a door. He leaned his head back against the seat and stared up at a ceiling he couldn't see. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Don't, Zaya said. I pulled you into. Don't, Zaya said again. Firmer now. Khyven stopped. The vehicle made another turn. The engine note changed slightly, they were on an elevated road now, moving faster. You didn't pull us into anything, Zaya said. We were already in it. The moment the registry flagged you, we became part of this. They know we found you. They know we left together. A pause. There was no version of tonight where we stayed out of it. Because of what you think I am, Khyven said. Zaya's answer came slowly. Because of what you are, he said. Not what we think. What you are. Khyven didn't argue it. He was too tired for that argument right now and too honest with himself to pretend the distinction didn't matter to him. Outside the vehicle, the city moved past at 60 miles per hour. Lights and sound and the vast organized machinery of a world that had apparently been building toward this night for 23 years. They drove in silence. The safe house was 40 minutes out. 39 minutes of quiet. And then, in the last 60 seconds before they arrived, Callum pulled the comms unit away from his ear and looked at it. Callum, Damon said. Reading something in the quality of the silence. The registry filed the escalation 11 minutes ago, Callum said. His voice had gone very careful. That's not the problem. What's the problem? Callum turned the unit over in his hands once. The authorization signature on the escalation order, he said. It doesn't belong to registry enforcement. A beat. Then who does it belong to? Zaya asked. Callum looked up. The same entity that originally funded Null Protocol, he said. 23 years ago. The vehicle slowed as they approached the property. But the road behind them had just gotten a great deal longer. If you knew the entire system had been watching you your whole life, that every move you thought you chose had been allowed, would you fight it, or would you disappear again? Tell me in the comments. Because Khyven's next choice changes everything. The safe house lights were still on when they arrived. That was the first wrong thing. Zaya saw it before the vehicle stopped moving. He said nothing. Just placed one hand flat on the back of Damon's seat. One tap. That was all it took. Damon cut the headlights. The vehicle rolled the last 40 feet in the dark and stopped short of the property entrance. Khyven felt the change before anyone explained it. The engine idling lower. The shift in everyone's weight. The specific quality of silence that meant the three men around him had stopped being cautious and started being operational. The lights were off when we left, Callum said.
Yes, Zaya said.
Motion sensor should have kept them off. There's no timer on this property.
Yes.
A beat. Someone's inside, Damon said. Not a question. A confirmation they were all already holding. Khyven sat very still in the back seat and ran the numbers. They had driven 40 minutes from the city center. No one had followed them. He had been listening for a second engine the entire ride and heard nothing. Which meant whoever was inside had arrived by a different route. Which meant they had known about this property before tonight. That detail landed hard. You said this wasn't registered to any of you, Khyven said.
It isn't, Callum said.
Then how?
That's the question, Zaya said.
The vehicle stayed dark. Nobody moved for 10 full seconds. Then Damon said, back entrance. Through the east tree line. Zaya was already opening his door.
Quiet.
Controlled. He leaned back inside briefly. Stay in the vehicle, he said to Khyven. Khyven turned his head toward the voice. No.
A pause.
Khyven. If they know about this property, they know about the vehicle. Sitting in it makes me a stationary target. He kept his voice even. I'm more useful inside with you than out here alone. Zaya held the silence for one more second. Stay close, he said. Same words as the office. But they landed differently now, less like an instruction and more like something he couldn't help saying. They moved through the tree line. Damon led. Khyven tracked his footsteps, soft, deliberate, landing at the outer edge of each step to minimize noise. Zaya was behind Khyven. Callum to his left. The ground was uneven, roots and loose soil, but Khyven adjusted, his cane still in his pocket, his hands reading the air, his feet learning the ground one step at a time. The back of the property came up fast. A door. Callum worked it open with the same physical key ring. Inside, warmth. Lived-in air. The smell of a house that had been used recently. And underneath that, something chemical. Sharp and specific. Khyven stopped moving. Wait, he said. Zaya stopped immediately behind him. There's something in the air, Khyven said. Chemical. Left side of the room. Damon, ahead of them, went still. What kind of chemical? Callum asked. Khyven inhaled again. Slow. Careful. Scent suppressant, he said. Industrial grade. The kind you use when you don't want to be tracked by, he stopped. By alphas. The room rearranged itself. Damon moved left fast. A crash, furniture hitting the wall. Then the sound of a struggle, short and decisive. Then nothing. Then a voice. Not one of theirs. Female. Controlled. Slightly out of breath. I'm not with enforcement, she said. I came alone. You can confirm that. Khyven heard Damon pull her upright. He heard the sound of zip restraints. Talk fast, Damon said. My name is Seraphine Okafor, she said. I work internal audit for the registry. Or I did, until 11 hours ago. A pause. They burned my access when I pulled the null protocol files. The room went quiet. You pulled those files, Callum said slowly. Yes. Why? A beat of silence. Then, carefully. Because the project wasn't just about suppressants. She paused. There were 26 subjects. Started at birth. Khyven Mercer is subject number 14. Nobody moved. 14 of them are still in the system, she said. Being managed. Monitored. Redirected every time they get close to their designated bond pair. She stopped again. The restraints shifted, she was adjusting her position. The other 12, they were terminated when the project directors determined they were no longer viable. Terminated. That word. Khyven stood in the dark of the safe house and let it move through him. 12 people. Started the same way he was started. Managed the same way he was managed. And when they stopped being useful, ended. Why come here? Zaya asked. His voice had dropped to something very flat. Because I found the authorization chain for tonight's extraction order, Seraphine said. It goes all the way up. Past enforcement. Past regional registry command. She paused. It goes to the founding board of the Null Protocol. The same people who started the project 23 years ago. They're still active, Callum said. Very. And they know we have him. They knew before you did, she said. They've had eyes on this property for 6 months. They were waiting to see if you'd find him on your own. A beat. Tonight accelerated their timeline. When he walked into your office, they moved. The silence that followed was the kind that changed rooms. Khyven turned slightly toward where Zaya was standing. You said this was safe, he said. I believed it was, Zaya said. And there was something in those 4 words, not an excuse. Not a defense. Just honesty, delivered without softening. He doesn't belong to you, Seraphine said. Her voice had shifted, directing this to the 3 alphas now. Direct and certain. That's what they'll say when they come. That's the legal framing they are building. That he belongs to the system. That he is, and always has been, state property. Khyven's jaw tightened. He had heard something like that before tonight. In the elevator shaft. Before the lights cut out. A voice from below them. He doesn't belong to you. He belongs to the system. He had been trying not to think about those exact words since. How long do we have? Damon asked. Before they move on this location. Seraphine said. Hours. Maybe less. They'll want to contain the information breach first. Once they do, they'll come here. Then we move again, Damon said. Moving won't be enough, she said. Not anymore. The moment tonight's operation went wrong, they escalated this from a local enforcement matter to a classified retrieval. She paused. The only way to stop this is to go public with the files. All of them. The full Null Protocol record. Every subject. Every authorization signature. Every termination order. You have those files, Zaya said. Yes. On you? Encrypted. On a device you can't access without my key. A beat. So your leverage, Damon said. No, she said quietly. I'm a choice. You can use the files to burn the whole project down publicly, and protect not just him, but the other 13 still in the system. Or you can keep running. Keep hiding. She stopped. But you already know where that ends. The house creaked around them. Wind outside. Distant. The property settling. Khyven stood in the middle of all of it and felt, clearly, precisely, the shape of what this night had become. This had stopped being about a wrong door an hour ago. Maybe longer. Cut her loose, Zaya said. A pause from Damon. Then the sound of restraints being removed. Seraphine exhaled once. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me yet, Zaya said. You're staying with us until we know the files are real. Agreed. Callum was already moving, pulling out a device, beginning to verify. And somewhere outside the property, on a road that ran dark and unmarked through the northern corridor, a convoy was being assembled. Pointed in their direction. With an authorization signature 23 years in the making. Khyven sat on the floor. Not from exhaustion. From choice. The safe house had furniture, he had felt the edge of a couch when they moved through the main room, but he needed the floor right now. The solid, unmoving concrete of it beneath him. Something that didn't shift. Everything else was shifting. Callum and Seraphine were at the far end of the room. He could hear the faint tap of keys, the soft exchange of technical language, encryption protocols, file architecture, verification sequences. That was its own kind of conversation, one he wasn't part of. Damon was near the front of the house, checking sight lines, running a quiet perimeter assessment through the windows. Zaya was nearby. He always seemed to be nearby. Not hovering. Not crowding. Just present in that particular way he had. Like his body had made a quiet decision that Khyven's general vicinity was where it intended to be. "You're thinking," Zaya said. "I'm always thinking," Khyven said. Differently than before. Khyven tilted his head slightly. "How would you know the difference?" "Your breathing changes," Zaya said. "When you're processing a threat, it stays controlled. Very even. Right now he paused. Different." Khyven didn't respond immediately. Outside, something moved through the trees. Damon tracked it, his footsteps shifted to the east window, held there for a moment, then relaxed. "It's real," Khyven said finally. "What is?" "What she said. About the project." He kept his voice level. "I've been trying to find a way it isn't. A reason it could be false, or exaggerated, or incomplete." He paused. "But it's real." Zaya said nothing. "The woman who managed me," Khyven continued. "Laureen. I thought she was someone who helped unregistered Omegas because she believed it was right. She had this whole presentation. Like she cared." He stopped. "She reported on me. Every location. Every job. Every time I got too close to anything resembling a Bond signal." He exhaled once. 20 years. "And I called her a friend." The floor was cold through his clothes. He didn't move. "I was kept in a box," he said. A moving box. Rearranged whenever the box started to feel like a life. Zaya crossed the room slowly and sat down, not next to Khyven, but nearby. Close enough that Khyven could feel the warmth of him even at distance. "I know what it is to lose something you thought was permanent," Zaya said. "To build around a space that turns out to be wrong." He paused. "I'm not going to tell you how to feel about this." "Good," Khyven said. "Because I don't know yet." A beat. "What I do know," Khyven said, "is that I'm done being moved." Zaya was quiet. "I've been redirected my whole life. Pushed. Managed. Adjusted." His voice hadn't gotten louder, but the quality of it had changed, something underneath it solidifying. "I'm done with that. Whoever comes for me tonight, whoever signs the orders, they don't get to decide where I go or what I am anymore." "Agreed," Zaya said. Khyven turned toward his voice. "That includes you." A pause. "I know," Zaya said. "You said okay in the car. I need to know that was real." Zaya didn't answer immediately. And the delay wasn't hesitation, it was the pause of someone being precise. "There's a pull," Zaya said finally. "I won't lie to you about that. It's biological and it's real and it doesn't ask my permission." He stopped. But I am not the project. I don't want what the project wanted. I don't want a subject or a bond that was engineered before you had any say in it. He paused once more. I want a choice. Your choice. And I'll wait as long as that takes. The room was very quiet. From the far end, Callum's voice, files are verified. They're real. All of it. Nobody celebrated. Nobody exhaled in relief. Because real meant everything Seraphine had said was true. Which meant 13 other people were still in the system. Which meant the entity that had built the project was still running. We need a decision, Damon said from across the room. He had turned from the window. His voice was direct, never anything else. We go public with the files, we pull every target onto us immediately. Every resource they have. This stops being an extraction operation and becomes something else entirely. A war, Callum said. Damon, yes. And if we don't go public? Khyven asked. Silence. Seraphine answered from across the room. If you don't go public, they retake you within 72 hours. Probably less. And the files disappear. And the other 13 stay exactly where they are. Khyven processed that. 72 hours. Or a war. Those were the options. He thought about the 12 who hadn't made it. The ones the project had terminated when they stopped being useful. He thought about the 13 still in the system, still being redirected, still being managed, still living inside a box that moved every time life started to feel real. He thought about being 19 years old and a doctor telling him the blindness was genetic, inevitable, nothing to be done. And how completely he had believed it. Release the files, he said. Everyone in the room went still. Khyven, Zaya said carefully. Release them, Khyven said again. Every authorization signature. Every termination order. Everything. He raised his head. They built this project on the idea that people like me don't matter enough to protect. That we can be moved and used and ended without consequence. He stopped. Prove them wrong. A long silence. Then Damon, who had not smiled once all night, made a sound that was almost one. Callum, he said. Callum was already working. 30 minutes to full distribution, Callum said. Every major oversight body. Every independent legal network. Every encrypted press channel. He paused. Once it's out, it can't be pulled back. Good, Khyven said. Zaya leaned forward slightly. And very quietly, to Khyven only, close enough that no one else would catch it, he said. You understand what this means? Khyven nodded once. It means the fight finally starts, he said. And Zaya, for the first time since a locked door clicked shut in a top-floor office, let out a breath that sounded almost like relief. We won't be able to hold the instinct forever, Zaya said. Not threatening. Just honest, the way he had been honest about everything else. At some point, the pull becomes something neither of us can manage. Khyven turned his head toward him. I know, he said. And? A pause. And I said not yet. He let that sit. That's different from never. Zaya said nothing else. He didn't need to. Callum's fingers moved across the device. The clock started. 29 minutes. And somewhere in the city behind them, in the offices of an entity 23 years old and still running, alarms were about to go off that couldn't be silenced. 22 minutes into the distribution clock, the power went out. Not the building. The whole grid. The entire northern corridor, lights dropping in sequence like a line of dominoes falling in the dark. Khyven felt it before Damon confirmed it, the sudden absence of the vacuum, the refrigerator cycle, the faint electronic buzz that most people never noticed was there until it wasn't. They cut the grid, Damon said. Local or wide? Callum asked. His voice was completely flat. Still working. Wide. Half-mile radius at minimum. Devices on internal battery, Callum said. 14 minutes remaining on the distribution. Will it complete? Zaya asked. If the signal holds. And if they're jamming? A beat? Then no. Seraphine moved across the room. Khyven tracked her. She had a different way of moving from the three men, lighter on her feet, more horizontal, like someone trained to stay low. They'll have a mobile jamming unit. They won't risk a signal breach at this stage. How do we counter it? Damon asked. We don't, she said. Not with what we have here. Then we need to move the signal source, Callum said. Get the device to higher ground. Somewhere the jamming unit can't blanket. He paused. There's a water tower. North-northeast. Maybe a quarter mile. You've scouted this area, Zaya said. I prep every location I'm likely to use, Callum said simply. Damon was already at the rear door. How many are outside? Seraphine, at least 6. Perimeter team. They'll have moved into position when the grid cut. Armed? Yes. Containment kit plus standard enforcement weapons. So we're not getting to the water tower without contact, Damon said. No, she agreed. You're not. The room held that reality for exactly 2 seconds. Then Zaya said, Khyven stays inside. No, Khyven said. Khyven. I heard you the first time, Khyven said. My answer is the same as it was in the loading bay. A stationary target in a known location is the worst place I can be. Zaya turned toward him in the dark. You can't see them coming, he said. It wasn't cruel. It was just true. No, Khyven agreed. But I can hear them. And right now, in the dark, that's more than you can do. A silence. Damon, quietly, he's not wrong. Zaya held the silence for 1 more second. Stay between me and Callum, he said. Understood. They moved. The back door opened into the tree line, the same route they had come in. But the night had changed. The enforced darkness of the grid cut had removed every ambient light source, and the perimeter team outside had not had time to fully position before Callum found them on his device's motion grid. 3 on the east side. 2 near the front. 1 unaccounted. That one mattered. They moved through the trees in a line, Damon at point, then Callum with the device, then Khyven, then Zaya. Seraphine fell in just behind Zaya. The ground was the same, roots and loose soil and cold air that smelled like wet bark and distance from the city. Khyven listened. 12 minutes on the clock. He tracked the team outside through sound. The slight displacement of brush when a body moved through it, the cadence of boots on uneven ground, the particular quality of someone trying to be quiet who had been trained on hard floors and hadn't fully adapted to field work. The unaccounted one was to the left. Closer than the others. He reached forward and touched Callum's jacket. 1 tap. Left. Close. Callum adjusted without breaking stride. Damon read the shift and curved the line right, adding distance. They cleared the first enforcement officer with 15 feet to spare. 8 minutes. The water tower was visible now, or it would have been, to anyone who could see. Khyven tracked it by the change in open air above them, the way sound bounced off its metal base differently from the trees. Then the second team made contact. Not with them, with the property behind them. The safe house erupted, boots on the porch, door coming off its frame, voices calling clear through the structure. They had breached 30 seconds after the group left, which meant the perimeter team had been waiting for the grid cut as a signal. Coordinated. Precise. This was not improvised enforcement. This was a practiced operation. They're inside, Damon said. Keep moving, Zaya said. 7 minutes. The ground leveled. They were out of the trees. The water tower base was close, metal ladder rungs, the same as the elevator shaft, cold and real under Kaivan's hand when Zaya guided it there. Up, Zaya said. Callum went first, device in hand. Then Kaivan climbed. He had done this in the shaft, the technique was the same. Find the rung. Wait. Move. Don't think about what's below. He was 12 feet up when a shout came from behind. They'd been spotted. Damon's voice from the base, go. I'll hold. Zaya started climbing below Kaivan. Damon. Go, Damon said. Absolutely certain. The sounds from the base were immediate and sharp. One impact. Then another. Damon did not lose ground quietly. Kaivan kept climbing. 20 feet. 25. Above him, Callum had reached the platform. The device was up. Signal extending. 5 minutes. Kaivan pulled himself onto the platform. Zaya came up seconds later. Below, the sounds of Damon's engagement were still moving, still active. He was not down. Come on, Callum muttered, watching the device. For minutes. 3. A figure appeared at the base of the ladder. Not Damon. One of the enforcement team. Zaya moved to the platform edge. The figure stopped climbing when they saw him. Stand down, the figure called up. This is a sanctioned retrieval. You are obstructing a legal operation. Nobody on the platform moved. The Omega designated as Subject 14 is to be returned to registry custody immediately. Any interference carries. The files are already distributing, Callum said. Not loudly. But he said it toward the base and let it carry. A pause from below. 2 minutes. Your files are being jammed, the figure said. Were, Callum said. 1 minute. The device in his hand made a sound, small, electronic, clean. Distribution complete. Full packet. Every file. Every name. Every authorization. Every signature. Every termination order. Sent to 47 independent networks simultaneously. Irretrievable. Callum lowered the device. The figure at the base of the ladder had gone very still. Below them, Damon's voice carried up. You want to come down now, or do you want me to explain what just happened to the rest of your team? The enforcement officer at the ladder said nothing. Then, slowly, they stepped back. And just like that, the operation changed shape. Not over. Not even close to over. But different. Because the thing they had spent 23 years keeping quiet was no longer quiet. Kaivan stood on the platform of a water tower in the dark of a jammed northern corridor and felt the night air on his face and something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Not safety. Not comfort. Agency. His own. It's done, Callum said. Part of it, Zaya said. Yes, Callum agreed. Part of it. From far below, the city. Distant but real. Still running. Still organized. Still enormous. And somewhere inside it, in offices and server rooms and secure facilities. The null protocol was no longer a secret. Khyven exhaled. "What happens now?" he asked. Zaya answered without hesitation. "Now it gets harder," he said. That was the truth. And Khyven, who had been running from truth for 23 years, decided he could live with it. The ride back toward the city was different from every other ride that night. Quieter. But not calm. Damon had 3 bruised ribs. He hadn't said so, but Khyven had heard the specific quality of his breathing since they came down from the water tower. Short inhales. Controlled. The kind that meant every full breath cost something. He hadn't mentioned it. Nobody had pushed him on it. Seraphine was in the front seat now. Callum drove. The device was dark, distribution complete, mission over for that particular task. But nobody in the vehicle felt like anything was finished. Because it wasn't. Khyven sat in the back between Zaya and Damon. He had been placed there carefully, not demanded, just arranged, the way the 3 of them always arranged things without full sentences. Damon to his left. Zaya to his right. The warmth of both of them, closer than before, not in a way that crowded him but in a way that felt like the physical expression of something that had been building all night. He didn't say anything about it. Neither did they. 20 minutes into the drive, Callum said, "They'll regroup fast. The files being public doesn't stop the enforcement arm. It starts a legal and political war, but boots on the ground don't stop moving because of legal proceedings." "How long before they make another move?" Seraphine asked. "Hours. Maybe less than that." Damon exhaled slowly, controlled, through his nose. "We need a location they can't predict. Something not connected to any of us in any registry." "I have something," Seraphine said. Everyone let that sit for a moment. "The audit team keeps a facility," she said. "Internal. Off-book. It was originally for whistleblower protection cases. Nobody outside of 3 people knows it exists, and one of those people was me." "The other 2?" Zaya asked. "One retired. One is currently trying to figure out how 14 years of project files just went public across 47 networks." She paused. "He has bigger problems than looking for us." "Take us there," Callum said. They drove. 40 minutes. Different direction from the North Corridor, east now, then south, cutting through an industrial district that smelled of machine oil and river water. The city thinned and thickened alternately, the way cities did at 3 a.m., quieter in the residential blocks, still running in the commercial zones. Khyven tracked all of it. He tracked the turns. He tracked the engine. He tracked the 3 men around him. Their breathing patterns, the small shifts in how they held their weight, the way Damon's controlled breathing was gradually, slowly, becoming slightly less controlled. 17 minutes in, something changed. Khyven felt it before he understood it. It was a sensation he had no prior reference for, a warmth that moved through his chest and down his arms, not from outside his body but from within it. Like something coming online. Like a system activating that had been dormant for years. He went still. Zaya noticed. "What's wrong?" Zaya asked, very low. "Nothing's wrong," Khyven said. He paused. "Something is." He stopped. Because the warmth was changing. It was moving, orienting, like a compass finding north. Except the north it was pointing toward was not a direction. It was a person. 2 people. He could feel Zaya to his right and Damon to his left with a clarity that had nothing to do with physical proximity or body heat. He could feel the shape of them. Not visually, not even through sound, but in some way that was older and deeper than either. He had not felt this before tonight. He had never felt anything like this in his life.
Kaivan, Zaire said.
I can feel you, Kaivan said.
The vehicle didn't stop.
But Zaire went very still.
What do you mean?
Zaire asked carefully. Kaivan tried to find words for it.
You're to my right.
I know that because you're sitting there. But I can feel where you are now in a different way.
Like, he paused.
Like pressure. Like a signal. He turned his head towards Zaire without thinking. And Damon. And somewhere further, Callum. Silence in the vehicle. Seraphine, quietly from the front seat, that's a Bond signal initiating. Nobody disputed her. It shouldn't happen this fast, Damon said. His voice had changed, still controlled, but with something underneath it. Something that had been held very tightly for a long time and was recognizing, very carefully, the possibility of release. It's been building for 7 months, Callum said from the front. For him, for all of us. The suppressants were blocking his signal from reaching us. But his system never stopped generating it.
And now?
Zaire asked. Now he's in close enough proximity, with enough sustained contact, under enough stress, Callum paused. His system is compensating. Kaivan sat with that. A Bond initiating. Not complete. Not claimed. Not done. But alive. And the thing that struck him, the thing he hadn't expected, was that it didn't feel like something being done to him. It felt like something waking up that had always been his. The vehicle slowed. They were approaching the facility. And then, everything happened at once. Tires on the road behind them. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. Callum's voice, we have contact. For vehicles. Coming fast. Seraphine, they found us. Damon was already moving, reaching past Kaivan for the door handle, assessing. How far to the facility? Zaire asked. 3 minutes, Seraphine said. We don't have 3 minutes, Callum said. Outside, the vehicles behind them were accelerating. One cut left, trying to flank. Another maintained position directly behind. Kaivan processed it. 3 minutes they didn't have. A Bond initiating that he could feel for the first time in his life. For enforcement vehicles and a facility 60 seconds too far. Stop the car, Kaivan said. What? Damon said. Stop the car, Kaivan said again. Let me out. Absolutely not. They're not here for you, Kaivan said. They're here for me. They want the subject. Subject 14. He kept his voice even. Certain. If I'm not in this vehicle, they have no reason to pursue it. You get to the facility. You get safe. The vehicle did not stop. Zaire, Damon said. A warning tone. Like he knew what Zaire was about to say and was asking him not to say it. Zaire said it anyway. He's right. Damon, Zaire. He's right, Zaire said again. But he's not getting out of this vehicle. Then what? We stop, Zaire said. All of us. We face it here. Another silence. The vehicles behind them were 30 seconds back. 20. Callum pulled over. The headlights of the pursuit vehicles flooded the car from behind, harsh, white, cutting through the windshield. Kaivan sat in the back seat with a Bond signal alive in his chest for the first time. With 3 men who had chosen to stop running. With files already public across 47 networks that couldn't be taken back. And he thought, clearly, without panic, without the managed fear he had been carrying his whole life. This is what it feels like when something actually belongs to you. The pursuit vehicle stopped. Doors opened. Boots hit the road. And Damon, bruised ribs and all, opened his door first. Khyven reached out and caught his wrist. Damon stopped. Together, Khyven said. Damon looked at him. Khyven couldn't see it, but he felt the shift of Damon's attention. Together, Damon agreed. All four of them got out of the vehicle at the same time. They didn't take him. That was the part that everyone would misunderstand later, when the story got told and retold through legal proceedings and press networks and the 47 channels that had received the files. They would say the triplets protected him. They would say the registry team stood down because the files had already gone public and the political cost was too high. They would say it was strategy and leverage and timing. All of that was true. None of it was the full story. The full story was 12 enforcement officers standing in the road at 3:40 in the morning, looking at four people who had stopped running, and understanding, in the way that trained people understand things when the math stops working in their favor, that this calculation had changed. The lead officer was a woman. Tall. Armor. The kind of face that had made difficult decisions before and carried every one of them. She assessed the scene for exactly 4 seconds. Then she said, "Stand down." Her team held position. "The retrieval order is suspended pending legal review," she said. Her voice was flat and professional and communicated absolutely nothing about what she was thinking. "Do not leave the country. Do not destroy evidence. You will receive formal contact within 72 hours. She turned back to her vehicles. That was it. No standoff. No conflict. No dramatic conclusion. Just the math changing, and a woman smart enough to recognize it. They watched the vehicles turn and drive back the way they had come. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Damon said, "I need to sit down." Callum was already beside him. They made it to the facility, 3 minutes at a careful speed, with Seraphine directing. It was a plain building. Deliberately unremarkable. Inside, it was functional and clean and completely off every grid that mattered. Khyven sat in a chair for the first time in hours. His body registered everything at once, the cold that had been building since the tree line, the tension that had locked his shoulders for the last 2 hours, the accumulated weight of a night that had started with a wrong door and ended with enforcement team standing down on a dark road. He sat with it. He didn't try to process all of it immediately. That was new for him. Khyven had always processed immediately, catalogued and sorted and filed things the moment they happened, because in his world, delayed processing was a luxury that got you caught off guard. But right now, he let it just be what it was. A night. The most significant night of his life. Still incomplete. Still open. But real. Zaire came and sat near him. Not across the room this time. Not at a careful distance. Just near. "How's the signal?" he asked. Khyven knew what he meant. He checked, the way you check something new, still learning where the edges are. Zaire was there. To his right. Clear. Damon, further into the facility, being examined by Callum, who had apparently had some medical training because nobody was surprised about it. There. Present. A different quality from Zaire, steadier, broader, like a held note rather than a focus point. Callum. In the other room. There too. All three of them. Each one distinct. Each one unmistakable. Still there, Khyven said. Zaire nodded once. "Does it bother you?" he asked. Careful. Not loading the question. Khyven thought about that honestly. "No," he said. "That's the part one keep checking. Whether it bothers me." He paused. It doesn't. He turned his head slightly toward Zaya. It should, probably. Given everything. Maybe, Zaya said. But it doesn't. He exhaled slowly. It feels like something that was always supposed to be there and wasn't. He paused. Like finding out the sound you've been missing your whole life had a name. Zaya was quiet for a long moment. Then, very carefully, "We're not going to rush this." "I know," Khyven said. "The bond is initiating. Not complete. It won't complete unless you choose it." "I know," Khyven said again. "And the choice?" "Zaya," Khyven said. He stopped. "I said not yet," Khyven said. "I meant it. But I also meant what I said after, that not yet is different from never." He paused. "I need time. I need to understand who I am outside of a project. Outside of a managed life." He stopped. "And I need to know that you can wait for that." Zaya said, "Yes." One word. No conditions. No qualifications. Just yes. Khyven nodded. Across the facility, Seraphine was already on a communication line with one of the legal networks that had received the files. He could hear her laying groundwork. Not just for him, but for the 13 others still in the system. Subject 1 through 13, scattered across districts, still being redirected and managed and moved in boxes that felt like lives. That mattered. That was the part that mattered beyond tonight. Because what had happened to him had happened to 25 other people. 12 of them hadn't made it. 13 were still inside the machine. And the machine, now that its files were public, was going to fight very hard to keep functioning. That fight was just starting. Callum said the political response will begin within 24 hours, Khyven said. Yes, Zaya confirmed. And the founding board of the project. They'll deny everything initially. Then attribute it to a rogue division. Then try to settle. Zaya paused. We're not settling. No, Khyven agreed. Damon's voice came from the other room, still rough, slightly strained from the ribs, but absolutely himself. Someone find me something to eat. I held off 6 enforcement officers on a bad road and I want food. Callum, dryly, you held off 2. There were 6 total. Damon, I held off the important 2. Seraphine, without missing a beat from her call, there's food in the second cabinet. Left side. The facility, this bare, functional, deliberately unremarkable room, filled briefly with the sound of something almost ordinary. Khyven sat in his chair. He was not safe. He understood that clearly. The 72 hours the officer had referenced were a formality, a pause while larger forces repositioned. The legal war that Seraphine was building a foundation for right now would take months, possibly years. The 13 subjects still in the system would each have their own versions of this night ahead of them. And the bond, alive in his chest, warm and real and still incomplete, was not a resolution. It was a beginning. A beginning he had not chosen from a place of desperation or management or engineered inevitability. He had walked through a wrong door tonight. And on the other side of it, for the first time in 23 years, he had found something that actually belonged to him. Not because the project designed it. Not because the registry authorized it. Not because 3 powerful men had decided he was theirs. But because he had stood on a water tower in the dark, and in a car on a road at 3:40 in the morning, and in a chair in a plane facility, and chosen. Every single time. He had chosen. Being chosen, Khyven said quietly, almost to himself, doesn't mean being free. Zaya turned toward him. Sometimes it just means the fight finally begins, Khyven finished. Zaya looked at him, and this time, Kaivan didn't need to see it to know exactly what his face was doing. He could feel it. And when he said yes, not tonight, not yet, but eventually, when the time came and the choice was fully and completely his, he wouldn't be choosing them. He would be choosing the war. And for the first time in his life, he was ready for it. If this story moved you, if Kaivan's fight felt like something you needed to hear today, then hit subscribe right now and turn on your notifications. Because the stories on this channel don't stop here. Every episode is built for people who need to be reminded that surviving isn't the same as living, and that real freedom starts the moment you stop letting someone else define your worth. Drop a comment below and tell me. Which moment in Kaivan's story hit you the hardest? Was it when he said not yet, or when he chose to stop running? Your answer might be exactly what someone else scrolling through this page needs to read today. Share this story. Pass it on. And don't miss what's coming next.